China is claiming unreasonable maritime sovereignty regardless of South China Sea arbitration. Putin's invasion in Ukraine shows us there can be the same tragedy in the Pacific. It is not certain how aggressive Xi Jinping is, but what I can ensure is we cannot say Pacific is stable. Xi wants to be 21st century Mao and Qin Shi Huang. He needs to centralize the power. Regional and international conflicts for the nationalism is the best way to do so. Therefore, now we should look at Pacific. It's about Chinese perspective on Pacific. When you recall China, you may think this big united territory. However, most of the history, it had been divided in numerous countries. Qin unified the countries in BC 221. It is the origin of China. After the foundation of Qin dynasty, China had focused on territorial issue rather than maritime issue. Ming Treasure Voyage is a unique case. Admiral Zheng He practiced 7 times the voyage from the mainland of China. He reached to Africa. During the voyage, they destroyed Chen-Jui's pirate fleet in Palembang, captured the Sinhalese coated kingdom of King Ali Kashbara, and defeat the forces of the Samudera Pretender Sekandar in northern Sumatra. It shows the voyage was not for making consuming market but for expanding the influence. Then, Ming Dynasty didn't feel any need to trade with other states. Ming was the biggest and richest country in the world in 15th century. Before Opium Wars, China had not felt any need of trade with other countries. China had denied all the demand of Britain to open a trade market. Even though there was some sort of trade between China and Britain, trade deficit of Britain was so serious. Britain imported tea from China, while China barely imported anything from Britain. This made Britain face lack of silver, which was the international currency at the time. Britain found the solution through a drug called opium. They sold opium to lower labor in China. Qing dynasty regulated the trade of opium. Britain protested to its regulation and evoked a war with the excuse to expand trade ports. In 1840, the First Opium War broke out. Through the First and Second Opium Wars, China was forced to sign unequal treaties. China lost Hong Kong and exclusive sovereignty. From the First World War, Japan reached to China. In 1931, Japan invaded on Manchuria without any declaration of war. Then, there was civil war in mainland China between Kuomintang of China and Communist Party of China. To expel Japan, 2 parties collaborated, which is called United Front. Despite the collaboration, Japan committed Nanking Massacre. Soviet Union and US somehow supported China. After the Japanese invasion, Soviet Union made non-aggression pact with China. After the Nanking Massacre, US besieged on the side of China. They were not enough to expel Japan. From April 1945, China started total offensive. To end the First War, US bombed atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This also ended the war in China. It is called Sino-Japanese War. Though the war was over, still the civil war was ongoing. In 1949, Mao Zedong stated the foundation of People's Republic of China. Chinese called the period between 1839 and 1949 a century of humiliation. Undergoing the century of humiliation, Chinese focused on their territorial integrity more than any other state. A year after the initiation of Mao's governing, Korean War broke out and China engaged into it. It was designed by Stalin and Mao. Until Khrushchev came to power, relationship between China and Soviet Union was so good. However, after the reign of Khrushchev, it is changed. He blamed Stalin and it made Mao feel insulted. Mao and Stalin shared the ideology of communism. Mao felt the blame against Stalin as blame against himself. This made China focus more on territory than maritime issue. Mao struggled to keep his power after the conflict with Soviet Union and Great Leap Forward. He committed Great Proletarian Cultural Revolution, which destroyed all the history of China. To consolidate his power, he focused on the mainland of China. On 25th October 1971, China became a member of United Nations. Taiwan was expelled from various international institutes. This shows the game in Asia was unchanging. China became one of the important actors in Asia. They chose US on behalf of Soviet Union, being an identical player of communism. This could be their moment of marching to Pacific, but China didn't rush. Deng Xiaoping made his own plan to make China stronger. In the mistake, he tried to modernize Chinese industry and infrastructure. In foreign, he tried not to be trapped in Soviet Union, and in long term, he tried not to make US unilateral player in Asia Pacific. He revolutionized financial and real market in China, but also he oppressed Chinese democratic movement. In 1989, Tiananmen Square protests and massacre represent the oppression. This was the moment of collapse of Chinese democracy and human rights. On the other hand, he suggests 3 steps to be strong state. First step is to solve the basic food, clothing, and shelter problems by making their GDP twice. Second step is to ensure middle class by making their GDP twice again. Third step is to step into the rich life and modernize the society. When he stated 3 steps, it was not meant to be aggressive. Until 2008, it was partially capped. However, US financial crisis and Afghanistan war changes the situation. On behalf of US, China behaved as the last lender. Before 2008, there was some discussions about emerging of China. They claimed China could be the threat, yet China insisted they are developing under global peace and don't want to disturb it. After 2008, China became consolidatory too, and eventually they shifted their focus to Pacific. This made a new conflict, and Xi Jinping appeared. At the inauguration, he mentioned Chinese dream 9 times. His purpose was certain: Great China again. To achieve the purpose, he planned to push US out of the Pacific. He strengthened A2AD, Plan BRI, and consolidated territorial integrity. You probably know these terms, but how well do you know? We can analyze them by changing China's new security concept. Before Xi, in 2000, China was focusing on cooperative solutions to weaken the influence of US on Pacific. It was not that aggressive. China also wanted to cooperate with US, but reform the existing international order. However, Xi wants to recreate the regional and international order on Pacific. South China Sea arbitration case by PCA shows the issue well. China claims 9-dash line as their maritime sovereignty. In 2013, Philippines sued China to interpret the terms of island and UNCLOS. It was a clever tactic of Philippines. If Philippines sued China for territorial and maritime dispute, China could have dismissed it as an excuse of national issue. Court judges where China claimed as islands are just rocks and illegal artificial island cannot affect the judgment. Technically, it was the victory of Philippines. Although this arbitration binds China and Philippines, China keeps the claim. Xi claims PCA decision cannot bind China. Then, why does China still make such absurd claims? China feels they are surrounded by US and her alliance. Imagine how US besieged Soviet Union. To recreate the regional system, China is going aggressively. China is still bothering peace use of sea by Southeast Asia states. They also claim island chain, which was designed by Li Huaqing in 1982. It consists of 3 ranges. First, from Kuril Islands to Strait of Malacca. Second, from Ogasawara, Papua New Guinea. Third, all over the West Pacific. Xi insists it is for peace in Asia Pacific. He wants the past hierarchic Asia again. All small states worship strong China. On the same line, he claims all South China Sea is under their sovereignty because they owned it in the history. He claims US harms the peaceful emerging of China. However, to achieve his goal, he needs to overcome Japan, Korea, Taiwan, Philippines, India, and more US allies in the region. Based on this strategy, China is dealing with Taiwan, South China Sea, and Indo-Pacific issue. Even in Nicaragua, China is trying her best to check US. According to John C. Aquilino, US Indo-Pacific commander, China has militarized 3 of China's artificial islands and Spratly Islands. It shows there can be a military action within a short time. This is the reason we should not look away from Indo-Pacific. Next time, let's talk about how US is dealing with the Pacific.